Future of Digital Collectibles, exploring the rise of NFTs.
You guys, like a one-liner, just introduce yourself, and then we can get started. Oh, you don't have a mic.
Hi everyone, I'm Zack. I'm an artist by trade. I work in the world of intellectual property, and I've turned my island into a bunch of cartoon characters. And with these cartoon characters, I use them as a template to explore style, creativity, mediums, sculptures, anything that I wonder to explore, basically.
Hi everyone, I'm Amina Mehti. I'm the founder and creative director of Crown Studio, which is a digital fashion house creating gamified luxury streetwear for the metaverse.
Very cool.
Hello, my name is Jurgen Hobarth. I'm in NFT since CryptoKitty days. I don't know if everyone knows them here, which was a very interesting, how to say that, first endeavor into it. And I'm focused more like on NFTs in the art collecting sector. But I find it also interesting, the new movements which are coming up, as was mentioned in the introductions, when it's how to tokenize physicals, for example, or real physical stuff as NFTs.
Very cool. So actually starting with yourself, where do you think we are with the NFT industry right now? Like, the hype is gone, let's say. You know, right now the most searched actually thing right now on the internet is actually has all to do with AIs. It's got nothing to do with NFTs anymore. And so you can still use AIs maybe for NFTs and generating art, but where do you think we are? Like personally, where do you think we are with the NFTs right now?
I think it depends. Like NFTs is a very generic term, I would say.
Okay, let me clarify that for you. Where do you think the mainstream is with the NFT?
I think the mainstream was definitely in a hype cycle, which we have seen with PFP projects. But my assumption is when we talk about adoption on mainstream, I mean, we need to look into demographics. And if you look into demographics, we talk about people which are now like 16, 17, 18. They are very familiar with digital assets, and particularly in the gaming space, like Fortnite. So I'm assuming that's where mass adoption will happen on a larger scale because they're used to it and it's just a different form of medium. And if you talk about more older people, like me, it's more like, I think, physicals. So like, for example, imagine, you know, most likely StockX, where you can buy sneakers, but you could buy them also too because a lot of people buy them like just for trading purposes. So imagine you buy like a digital version of a sneaker. And then, yeah, there's definitely the high art segment. I think that's a little bit of a challenge because, you know, the entry barrier is pretty high now. If you talk about high art NFT, we're talking like 100K plus. But there we see adoption in the more traditional art world. And then in design perspective, I think for designers, it's a new medium how to promote themselves and how to explain that, how to make them differentiate from everyone else. Like, you know, when you were a designer and were doing like social medias back 10 years ago, you were like a rising star. And if as a normal designer you focus now on this medium, you also have an edge against your competition.
Yeah, and so there's a lot more noise as well right now, as you said.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Minia?
Yeah, so I think what people often forget is that NFTs are assets, right? So they don't need to have as much of a hype as they do now. They can be much smoother integrated into what we're doing every day, right? So one of the best ways in what I call Web 2.5 is fidgetals, right? As you mentioned, like fidgetals, AR filters, you know, just having them more integrated without actually calling them NFTs, because nowadays it comes with so much positivity as well as equal negativity that comes along with it, right? So going forward, AI is a fantastic tool, but same as NFTs, right? So as we transition more into the digital, as our lives become more and more engrossed in virtual worlds, which I see it happening in the next few years, then all of these assets are going to be required to be able to live in these virtual worlds, to sustain yourself, to create your own identity. So I think that it will come and go. The space will definitely diversify in terms of what it offers, but it's definitely here to stay.
Thank you.
I mean, if really and truly, NFTs are becoming more mass adoption. If you think about it, if you look at Instagram, it's now including NFTs, Twitter's including NFTs. So really and truly, they have hit definitely the mainstream. and it is being acknowledged. In the future, maybe we might move more towards a digital world, in the sense that we spend most of our time on our phones. So NFTs can be that kind of proof to show that, listen, we own this. Kind of how we use our wallets, how we use our Revolut, how we use our electric cards, for example. So it can be a kind of proof that shows like we own these digital assets, and it's heading towards that.
Very nice. Now, there are a lot of Web2 giant companies that they're entering the Web3. But you also see, company like, let's say, I give two examples. So let's say Reddit came to the Web3. They did really well. They brought more active wallets than OpenSea has, right? So they brought in, I believe, somewhere around 3 million active wallets, and OpenSea had about 1.6 at the time. And then we have other companies like Porsche, for example. They came in a few months ago, and they didn't do so well. What do you think is responsible? What makes a giant Web2 company coming in your own opinion? So you're as the artist, as having someone just done art for forever, as you were describing it. What do you think is What do you think is stopping people from actually accepting that, hey, like Porsche, the brand that they've known for years, now is getting into the Web3?
That's a really good question. I think what's really important is to look at if a brand has an audience, to look at that audience and see, is this audience familiar with Web3? Is this audience, like for example, Porsche, the audience might not be very familiar with Web3. It's a physical product, it's a car, it's an experience. So it would help if they had to educate. I'll give a case in point. Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, when he created VFriends, the first thing he did is he knew that most of his followers were youngsters who want to hustle, and he knew they didn't really know about Web3. So what did he do? He educated them. He did a promotional program where he did mass education for about a month or two before he released his product. And when I went to VCon and I met these people, it was crazy because they all told me, like, listen, this is the first NFT we ever bought. We bought a bunch of VFriends. Gary taught us about Web3. And besides that, we made a shit ton of money as well. We got a good investment. So it's good to educate people. And that's the best way to get into these things. How I got in was, I was very lucky. I wasn't very well educated. I did a lot of fan art. And my fan art got picked up by other artists. And they really liked the art and they asked to collaborate. We did them as NFTs. And that stuff grew, and it led me to doing my own project. So going back to your question, I think educating people and knowing the audience is very, very important.
So just to dig deeper into that, like why do you think Porsche couldn't educate people?
They could, but did they? That's the thing. Did they? Or did they reach out to the right advisors, for example, to get some good advice?
They didn't, actually.
So yeah. That's one thing that they should learn from and improve on.
Right. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think to add on to people, it's very community-based. One of my favorite NFT activations by big companies is Nike, because what they did is they focused on the long term. They acquired a company that has been in the space for much longer than them. They were aware of the trends and what people liked. Artifact is one of, had very successful activations with sneakers and everything. So I definitely think that was a good decision. But also looking at what they've done is co-creation. They've co-created with a few, or they've released competitions for designers to come and co-create Nike shoes, right? That they will create as NFTs and then physicals. So what that just shows is that they're looking at what people want. What Porsche missed out on is extremely high price points, which as a luxury company they're used to. But in NFT world, that's, it's a completely different industry. So they came into Web3 with Web2 thinking and almost like cash cowing out the whole situation, which is, you can feel when it's a short-term strategy.
Right. So it's education, co-creation, and then buying into, basically acquiring communities. What else?
I mean, before it was mentioned, like Reddit is a web community. People are engaged and their profile picture is part of their identity. Versus with Porsche, I think what for me was turning off was basically you are paying to be advertised towards. That was my kind of concept and feeling. I would think luxury brands have a play in this industry, but they would need to add an additional value. Just buying it and not knowing what you get. I mean, there have been some other kind of NFT activations from luxury brands. You wait for the product deliveries for 6 months. There's not really any added value. And I mean, if you know the mechanics behind it, I mean, we all know how big agencies work. They were seeing it and were thinking, okay, we have large enough power in public relation. We invest $1 million and we raise $10 million. That's a free advertising campaign. And we all on this panel, I'm assuming, knowing how agencies are counting, they are saying that has a media value of $100 million. And then their CEO is stamping it off and let's go. So, but I think in their case, they kind of try to turn it around. We will see where it's going. But definitely, it's not lack of, I think, helping them to find the right audience. It's finding the right concept which fits to their brand.
Okay, so it's education, co-creation, and community acquiring, and then also the right concept. So basically being relevant, right? Now, you talked about gaming and how it's going to allow many more people to come into the Web3. But there's also a lot of gamers that don't like anything to do with blockchain. So the question is, and I think you guys kind of mentioned that too, where NFTs are really cool when it's not mentioned, but it's being used, right? So in the games where you're actually playing a game and then you don't even know there's an NFT, right? Or Ticketmaster, for example, they've started talking about how they want to use NFTs without people even knowing. So what's the approach then? Like, if you can't even talk about the NFTs, how can we get, like, how do you think gaming will actually allow lots of people not only understand but also adopt NFTs if we don't want to even mention it, right? So there's actually even maybe a negative connotation with NFTs. People change the name, like digital collectibles or so on and so forth.
Yes, I think, I mean, the concept of digital collectibles exists. I mean, in the gaming industry, there is a kind of a form of a trade already happening since years. We also don't know, like, in what was it, like in Counter-Strike, like particular stickers on weapons have more. There is no functional value. It's just like rarity. I think it's similar in the gaming industry. The gamer doesn't care about on what engine the game is built, and he should also do not care how the assets are managed. And along the way, when he's, for example, let's say the games are integrating more like blockchain-based technologies, then later on they realize, oh, you know, there was this problem like with Valve where you could not build an independent marketplace for some things or do not do outside of the ecosystem with something. So literally that's an entry, and then all those problems which happened before maybe could be solved in a much better way. So it's like a soft introduction. They don't need to be now the people who are, I don't know, like downloading a MetaMask wallet or whatever. Should be just integrated as a component as it is, a game is built in Unity engine or Cray engine or whatever.
Cool. So that's as far as gaming. What about fashion? Like, do you think that could make it mainstream for NFTs for Web3?
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, if big Web2 companies coming into the space isn't really a sign, I would say that the gaming community and just gamers in general, as you mentioned, they don't really care about NFTs as much. They care about the utility. So if you buy a skin that gives you healing powers in a game that you're playing with and your life is just immersed in that, of course you're going to buy it, you know? And you're going to use it and you're going to benefit from it. So in general, fashion is already a multi-trillion, dollar industry in the Web2 world. So imagine that transitioning into the gaming world, the virtual world, and it's just a massive opportunity in general.
Great. And then so gaming, fashion. What about like the artists? And there are many studios that they're gravitating toward Web3 stuff, right? So how do you think that could actually help the mass adoption of Web3 NFTs?
Since I've been in the space, I've seen a lot of things happen with NFTs. It started out just by selling the art as a digital collectible, but over the time there was always this way to stand. Everyone wants to stand out, basically. So what they try to do is they say, I'll pair it with a physical. So I'll give a physical piece of my artwork, for example. They created these cases. If I believe so, Beeple was the first one to create the capsule, which was an added touch, you know what I mean? You feel like you're actually getting something physical. Then they start adding all these utility tokens. Fashion started coming in, like artifacts. It really and truly, there is no way to go about it. You can create your own way. What added value you wish to add is endless. There are people who do tokenomics as well, for example, with NFTs. I don't know if you've heard of cyberpunks. Not cyberpunks. Cyberkongs, for example. They gave bananas, which was a very cool way. They created these tokens. But really and truly, if you think about it, even these normal games like Fortnite, don't they have tokenomics as well? They have their V-Bucks. But it's centralized, so... I mean, it's endless what we can add, you know, so...
Very good. Last point?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that is that, like, a lot of like big companies like Fortnite, why they don't want NFTs, and it's because they're essentially cutting into their revenues. Because one of the best ways that these gaming platforms make money is through wearables and skins and assets that they sell. So if they have to undergo through a major transition and have them all as NFTs on the blockchain, first of all, it's costly, so it's not exactly a good investment. But if you turn to someone else, then you'll have to share your profits. You know, so that's one of the main reasons that I think personally that they're against it. But I think we'll reach that stage as e-commerce, you know, where you cannot deny it and you have to enter the market. So it's a matter of time.
Thank you, the panelists. That's all we have time for on this panel. Give the panelists just a round of applause.